Welcome back. Welcome to the Premier Mindset by Premier Performance LLC. I'm your host, Trent Mahler, LCSW, licensed clinical therapist and performance coach, and this is episode 44. High performers don't struggle because they lack talent, work ethic, or vision. They struggle because trust inside the team breaks down quietly through miscommunication, unspoken expectations, hesitations, or the need to control everything themselves. When trust erodes, performance doesn't collapse overnight, it slowly tightens, fragments, and stalls. That's where team trust actually comes in, not as a soft skill or a feel-good concept, but as a performance multiplier. Trust is the system that allows people to move fast without micromanaging, to challenge each other without defensiveness, and to operate under pressure without everything falling on one person's shoulders. High performers don't lose effectiveness because they stop caring. They lose effectiveness because under stress, trust shrinks. People default to protecting themselves, withholding feedback, over-functioning, or working in silos. Trust gives teams a way to slow that reaction down, clarify roles, repair misalignment, and deliberately rebuild cohesion, so decisions improve and execution stays sharp when it matters most. In this episode, we're breaking down what team trust really is, why it's one of the strongest predictors of sustainable high performance, and how leaders and high achievers can intentionally build it to strengthen decision-making, reduce friction, and support their mission without burning themselves or their teams out. Quick note before we dive in. This podcast is for education and performance growth. It's not a replacement for therapy or medical treatment. If there is something you need, make sure you go and get it. If you ever felt like you were caring too much, questioning whether your team really has your back, or noticing performance slip despite everyone working hard, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. First, what is team trust? Team trust is the shared belief among team members that they can rely on one another's competence, integrity, and intentions. It serves as the foundation for high-performing teams, transforming a group of individual contributors into a cohesive unit. Experts often categorize trust into several key pillars or C's. The first C is competence or capability, the belief that teammates possess the necessary skills and expertise to complete their tasks effectively. They can do what they need to do their job successfully. The second one is character or integrity, the confidence that members will act honestly, follow through on commitments, and uphold shared values. The next C is caring, benevolence, the perception that team members have each other's best interests at heart and will support one another in difficult times, that we're all here for each other, that this is not some dog-eat-dog world where whoever comes out on top is the one who matters, that we actually care about each other. And then consistency or reliability, the expectation that behavior remains predictable and dependable over time. Because without predictability, without consistency, people don't know what to expect. They don't know what's going to happen. And because of that, if things go wrong or if there's a feeling that things go wrong, people will hold things back. And that will actively create more issues to getting done what you guys need to get done. A critical concept in modern teamwork, which is popularized by Patrick Lencioni, is vulnerability-based trust. This goes beyond mere predictability. It requires team members to be comfortable admitting mistakes, acknowledging weaknesses, and asking for help without fear of judgment or retribution. This creates a culture of psychological safety, which is essential for innovation and risk-taking. And we're going to talk about that a bunch in this episode because psychological safety is a lot of what we're building to create trust. Team trust matters more than you think. It leads to increased productivity. High-trust teams spend less time watching their backs and more time collaborating efficiently, which can lead to faster decision-making, as trust reduces the need for constant second-guessing and micromanagement, further leading to higher engagement. Employees in high-trust environments report 76% more engagement and 74% less stress. It has nothing to do with their actual job of what they're doing. It's just the environment being a high-trust environment. It is so powerful for us as high performers and for everyone else we work with and everyone else on our team. And it even helps with innovation. Members feel safe to share crazy or unconventional ideas that can lead to breakthroughs because they're not worried about doing something wrong. They're not worried about being punished or being judged. It's trusting in the vulnerability of the group that I can just open up and throw things out there and they'll be honestly looked at objectively and they could lead to successful things. There are also different types of specialized trust. We can have three kind of things that show up. One is swift trust. This is a form of presumptive trust found in temporary or ad hoc teams where members must rely on each other immediately without a prior history of working together. These don't happen this often, but they can in special circumstances. If you've ever been in a group, whether it be like a workshop or a conference or something you're doing at work, whatever it is, and you're working with people you've never worked with before, sometimes we can just gel very quickly. And sometimes that comes from just a lack of things going wrong because we just don't have time with each other yet. We don't have any prior history. So that can help get into it, but sometimes, especially while we're doing these things long enough, that swift trust can kind of go away because we have more and more time with each other. Another one is effective trust. This is based on emotional bonds and personal relationships between team members. It's kind of like what I was talking about. This is more long term. This is more we're building personal, actual relationships, and we have history with each other based on how we're responding to things and how we dealt with situations together. So it does change how that trust is now built. The third one is cognitive trust. This is based on the rational evaluation of a teammate's reliability and professional skills. It's kind of based on their ability to be successful at what they do. That this is kind of a little bit more on competence or their abilities. So team trust does work as a performance multiplier. It's not just a nice to have thing. Trust is the invisible force that determines how fast decisions are made. Trust allows teams to move faster together than individuals ever could alone, especially in high stakes environments. Team trust is recognized not as a soft skill, but as a high velocity performance multiplier. In high stakes environments, it serves as the invisible force that eliminates operational friction, allowing teams to move with a speed and resilience that individuals cannot achieve alone. Velocity is the speed of trust. Trust acts as a green light. That keeps decision making and execution in constant motion. And it also reduces verification costs. High trust teams avoid the tax of second guessing, constant status updates, and multiple layers of approval because we don't need to just verify. There's trust that we can do the work as we feel fit. And this further leads to rapid decision making. In high stakes scenarios, members rely on each other's competence, the cognitive trust we talked about earlier, allowing them to act on information quickly without waiting for exhaustive proof because you just trust they can handle it. On top of it, we have confident delegation. Leaders in high trust environments delegate authority fully, enabling the team to respond to market changes or crises in real time without constant oversight, and that flexibility helps create a lot of success. We have to be flexible under chaos. It's really hard to be rigid at that time. Things usually break. And to be flexible means we're going to have to trust each other. So going deeper into that, team trust also creates resilience under pressure. In high stakes environments, pressure can cause low trust teams to fracture into silos where people are doing things individually without talking to each other, or blame seeking behaviors where we're starting to point fingers and say who did what or whose fault this is. And none of those things help the overall mission of what we're trying to do wherever we're at. Trust acts as a buffer against stress. Trust creates psychological safety, which creates a biological buffer as it increases oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, and it lowers cortisol, which is the stress hormone, keeping the team's prefrontal cortex engaged for critical thinking rather than survival instincts. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure having people on our team more focused on engaging critically in some way with what they're doing versus just being in survival mode, I know which one I'm going to choose every single time if I'm building a team. We need that critical thought piece, and we need to be able to do it without feeling threatened all of the time. And with trust, it helps allow constructive disagreement to occur. Trust allows teams to pressure test ideas through intense debate without it becoming personal. This leads to more robust solutions that can withstand high stakes failure because we're open and willing to talk about these things and put it out there and see what might actually go wrong instead of just getting caught up playing it safe and conservative, hoping that everything's all right and no one judges us. I mean, think about it in your own life with whatever you do. How many times have you had something you wanted to say or a point you wanted to make, but you were worried about what everyone else might think about it, so you just kept it to yourself? This is the exact thing that a high trust environment stops. This way we can get this stuff out. And even if we disagree, that's okay. That's why I tell you guys, I don't mind if you disagree with me. If you disagree with every single thing I say, that's fine. Tell me. I want to see what you're thinking. I'd love to discuss it. Because if you disagree with it, you probably have some other perspective. And I'd love to understand it and try and see it through those eyes. We have to be willing to disagree with each other. And I feel like today, more than ever, this is so true. That we're so caught up worried about what everyone else is going to think and who's going to see it, how people are going to react, that we just play it safe and we hide things. This is partly what made me pretty nervous sharing these things myself, like the podcast or any of my ideas that I put out there publicly. But the more I've done it, the more ridiculous I've seen that fear be, because most people aren't negative or they're not really saying anything mean. Most people are just supportive and they get things from it and they engage with it and they kind of just keep going. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there and don't be afraid to build these environments so you can pressure test the things you're doing and get the best products out there, whatever you're doing, whatever you're working on. Trust at the end of the day creates sustainability instead of burnout. Trust is the primary factor that determines whether a high-performing team thrives long-term or collapses under its own intensity. Psychological safety acts as a safety valve, which is why it's so important. In trusting teams, high performers feel safe to admit they are overwhelmed or need help. This early intervention prevents full-blown burnout that occurs when individuals feel they must perpetually fake competence. Resource efficiency is a big factor too. High trust reduces the emotional cost of work because energy is not wasted on office politics, hidden agendas, or self-protection. It is entirely channeled into achieving results, making the work more energizing and less draining. With that, there's measurable multiplier effects. Research confirms that trust delivers tangible competitive advantages. It leads to productivity. High trust teams are up to 50% more productive than their counterparts. So you're going to get way more things done. It creates resilience. Members of high trust teams are 42 times more likely to be highly resilient during organizational change, meaning they can handle it and they're not just going to disappear. Anyone out there leading a team or an organization, think of how many times you've lost great people because of change, because maybe they weren't resilient enough to get through that situation or that time because of the trust of that team that was built. And on top of it, further creating higher retention rates. Organizations with high trust experience 50% to 59% lower turnover, kind of going further on what I was talking about. This protects their most valuable human capital in high stakes industries, which is good workers. When we have really good people on our teams, if we lose them, it can take a long time to try and replace them. It is better to try and make it work and create an environment that's going to be sustainable for everyone, because even if you find someone else that's really good at what they do, it's just a matter of time before they leave too. We have to create a situation that's going to work for people. So now I got a real world story I'm going to go into for you guys so you can kind of see this stuff happen in real time. It is confidential, of course. We do not share anything with anybody we work with. We keep everything private, and that's on purpose because we want to give everyone the privacy they need to work through things without worrying about everyone else in the world knowing about it. But still, these real world stories are helpful for you guys to understand what I'm talking about through an example instead of just a whole bunch of words. I know it's more words, but still. A competitive athlete that was working with us, we will call him Steve, was technically elite. He was disciplined, coachable, and physically prepared, but he consistently underperformed in team competition. Under pressure, they overcompensated. They were doing too much, they were covering for teammates, and they were trying to control outcomes. Trust within the team was thin. Everyone was talented, but no one fully relied on each other. Everyone was kind of doing it on their own. Through our work together, we learned the issue wasn't about trying harder. It was about clarifying roles, regulating anxiety, and rebuilding trust in teammates' preparation and decision making. Once Steve stopped carrying the entire outcome and started trusting the system, performance stabilized, the team improved collectively, and pressure moments felt calmer and results followed. Not because effort increased, but because trust did. And this is a lot of what we see. When people aren't sure what's going wrong, 9 times out of 10 we default to effort, that we just need to try harder. But I'll also say 9 times out of 10 we miss it, and it's not actually about effort. It's usually about something else. So we have to be able to recognize what's going on, and if we can just stop and take a look at it together, we can probably see what the exact issue is and really hone in on what to do to fix it instead of just playing this guessing game and taking your time doing stuff that's not actually going to help anybody. And this is why we do this work here at Premier Performance, is we're trying to provide people almost like the shortcuts to get through these things faster so they find success quicker. Life is short, especially in athletics, right? Most people don't get to do athletics their entire career or their entire life, especially competitively. So when we are doing things, we have to take advantage of it because that time we get to do it is going to fly by, and before we know it, we're going to blink and it's going to be gone. So let's try and deal with these things. And if you feel like you don't know what's going wrong in a situation you're in or a team you're in, just let me know. Reach out. I'd love to help with you guys. You just got to let me know what's going on, and I'll help you guys work through it. Now let's talk a little bit of what team trust looks like under pressure. Under pressure, team trust shifts from an abstract concept to a visible operating system. In high-stakes environments, a trusting team doesn't just feel better, it exhibits specific behavioral markers that prevent collapse and accelerate recovery. One way is constructive dissent, not quiet compliance. In low-trust teams, pressure leads to groupthink. As members fear looking foolish or challenging a leader, they start to try and get all on the same page together. They try and just say what other people are saying. And with this, we don't grow. I've been on teams that do this, and it's really frustrating because there's times I want to grow personally as an individual or even as a team, but people are so afraid to push back on certain things or bring up new ideas. They just start kind of parroting the same things, just bringing up the same ideas over and over again because they're safe. In high-trust teams, they build in strategies around this, such as the designated contrarian. This strategy is really helpful, and a lot of teams take advantage of it because you pick one person to explicitly encourage to flag blind spots or unconventional risks, even when time is short. So this contrarian, their whole job is to essentially just disagree with what the rest of the group says. And the goal of this is to help us see things we may have missed or we may have just glossed over because we don't want to consider it and we get stuck in that group thing. So you kind of give the task to somebody to take that role on of, I'm going to push back and say something some people may not like, and then we can explore it and see if there's actually any ideas there. We can also deal with conflicts productively when they pop up, because they will. Anytime we're working with other human beings, it's just a matter of time before a conflict arises. It's going to happen. We just got to do it productively. Disagreements are handled politely but firmly in these teams, focusing on facts and mission-critical problems rather than personal attributes. We don't want to get into a personal battle about what's going on. And sometimes we do have personal issues that we got to deal with. That's a little different. This is more conflicts in the actual work itself and trying to refocus back on what we're trying to get done and handle it the right way instead of getting caught up in these personal battles of who hates who and all the tension that comes into the team after that. Or we can use tools that we've talked about before. We can use formal mechanisms like the pre-mortems that we talked about before to explore potential failures before they occur. You're kind of like looking down the line of what's going to go wrong before it even happens to see if you can catch some issues or problems that you can sort out before you publish, before you put it out there, whatever it is. Another way it looks is radical transparency and intent sharing. Trust is an output of consistent clarity. In crisis moments, high-trust teams eliminate the ambiguity tax. Narrating intent is powerful. Leaders and members explain the why behind rapid decisions, such as, I'm cutting X project because of Y budget constraint, which prevents the team from filling communication gaps with negative assumptions. When we have gaps or blanks, we tend to fill it in with our own insecurities or our biggest fears. So being able to narrate the intent of what we're trying to do in the like the why behind it all, especially when things are happening fast. I understand things do need to happen fast sometimes in business, but we have to let the team into the transparency to understand the why. Otherwise, they're going to fill it in with their own fears and concerns and worries. And I've seen that happen a bunch too. We don't want the team to turn into a gossiping bunch of people. We want people to just be on the same page, know what's happening, and just get to work and get things done. That's when we're powerful. That's when we're successful. These high trust teams also use proactive honesty to get ahead of problems. Members share updates even when the news is challenging, avoiding sugarcoating that can lead to misinformation or even speculation. So just be honest of what's happening. Don't have the team gossiping about what could happen or what could go on. Just get ahead of it and be open and honest with people about what's going on. If you have somebody that does not like sitting in tension or does not like sitting in stress of some sort, in all reality, they're not going to super survive in these high performance environments. So being honest, even if it leads to some people walking away, just helps you because they weren't going to make it in the long run anyways. If you just telling them what's going on causes them to break, that's a problem. And there's a lot of really high performing people. I was listening to Nick Saban, the longtime Alabama coach, talk about this, that he focuses a lot with toughness on what it takes to break somebody. It's not so much he's trying to break people, but what they're doing when playing football is you're doing hard things. In business, hard things are going to happen. So we have to understand our break points, and we have to be willing to push ourselves far enough that our break point is so far out there that we're not going to actually reach it. Because if you can break, then success is going to get out of your reach. Yet another way is creating a culture of vulnerability as a safety valve. High trust teams use vulnerability to prevent catastrophic errors, such as asking for help early. Team members are quick to admit when they are overwhelmed or stuck. Viewing help seeking as a strength helps elevate collective performance because people aren't afraid to get what they need to get ahead. You're not getting dragged down by people's own fear. Or even owning mistakes. Instead of finger pointing, members use extreme ownership, acknowledging errors immediately so the team can pivot and learn and not be held back or delayed by it. We have to get to the work. If something goes wrong, let's just own it and move on. This is what it is. It's all about cutting time. And even leading by example through leader modeling. Leaders can demonstrate intellectual humility by admitting what they don't know, which grants the rest of the team permission to be honest about their own limitations. The team will follow what you do. So lead by example. If you're going to do something, people will follow it, especially if it leads to success. The most powerful answer we have to any question can sometimes be, I don't know. It's great when we do have an answer, but being able to acknowledge the humility of I don't have that answer is a powerful thing because that means we're strong within our own ego, within our own sense of self. And it also means we can go and get that answer and do some research and figure out what to do with that. And there again, we're going to improve as an individual and the team's going to improve as well. Psychological resilience is a huge aspect of success as well. Under stress, high-trust teams maintain focus while protecting individual well-being. They do this by having a calm demeanor. Trusted leaders steady the room by remaining focused and solution-oriented, setting a tone that prevents panic. They kind of act as a compass, that the leader's not panicking, so we don't have to panic either. It kind of creates this calm for the team so people can just stay in it and do what they got to do. We can also protect individual well-being while maintaining focus by using humor and connection. Despite the intensity, high-trust teams use brief moments of humor or personal connection to build oxytocin and buffer against the biological effects of stress. You can see an example of this on the show The Pit, with one of the doctors constantly making jokes, to the point that it catches people off guard, where he's just making these kind of like cringy, like almost candy wrapper type jokes, and the new interns and stuff are watching, they're just like totally baffled by it. And then some of the other doctors that have been around for a while, they explain like this is just what he does, because when people are in a better mood, it literally changes how they feel and how their health is going. It can literally make them better. It's not going to fix everything by any means, but these things help. Laughter, connection is medicine in some ways. So let's make sure to inject these into the teams we're working with and the relationships we have in our lives too. Another powerful thing is taking advantage of burnout prevention. Members feel safe discussing workload concerns before they reach a breaking point, allowing for strategic pacing. We have to build that trust so we can talk about it. Because if they never bring it up, people will push until they reach that breaking point. One thing we offer at Premier Performance is workshops targeted for burnout prevention. So if this is something your team is dealing with or you yourself are dealing with, let us know. We can get something set up and run you guys through it and get you guys set up to avoid it, especially, kind of starting off this new year. Another aspect of high trust teams and high performers in general is we have to be efficient with our decision making. And we can do this by following the 40-70 rule, because we're going to have to make hard calls in short time periods with not all the information. High trust teams operate with swift trust and confidence in delegated authority, such as decisiveness with incomplete info. Members trust each other's calculated instincts, often moving forward with only 40 to 70% of the information available because they trust the team's ability to adapt if the initial plan crumbles. Or the quickness of autonomous execution, as trust eliminates the need for micromanagement, allowing members to act without constant oversight, even in fast-moving, high-stakes environments, can be very helpful. Not only does this help the team get things done quickly, this also makes employees, workers, teammates, colleagues, whoever you're working with, much happier. Everyone likes feeling autonomy with the work they're doing. So if we can create that autonomous execution where we can just get things done, it's going to feel good for everybody and we're going to get things done quicker. Team trust is no longer viewed as a feeling, but instead as a real-time operating system. When trust is persistent, the team's collective nervous system remains regulated, allowing for high-speed execution even in volatile environments. So we can be in the middle of chaos and we're going to be very successful still because we can handle it. So here is how 4 common markers manifest in real-time professional settings. One of those is more emotional reactions. Reactivity occurs more than regulation. In low-trust environments, feedback or setbacks are often perceived as personal attacks, triggering a fight-or-flight response. To work on it, we build the trust effect, which leads to team members assuming positive intent. When a colleague points out a flaw in a project, the recipient doesn't feel a surge of cortisol or the need to lash out because they know there is trust to rely on here, and what they're telling them is something just to improve and not a personal attack. This leads to things going differently. Instead of a heated exchange or a passive-aggressive silence, the team stays in problem-solving mode. Conversations remain focused on the objective rather than the ego. We got to focus on what we're trying to get done instead of that ego in us that just tries to get in our way, because it will, and it's in all of us. And this is not the same egotistical type thing that I'm talking about that gets talked about in a lot of social media and movies and shows. This is more of that ego of, I'm right, I've never done anything wrong, I'm perfect, and these defense mechanisms that come from it. It's a psychological concept. All these things further lead to faster recovery after mistakes, which is often called the pivot speed. Trust acts as a shock absorber. It determines how much time is wasted on post-disaster politics versus actual remediation. Are we caught up just talking about what happened and how it went wrong and that we're pissed about it and all the issues we see from it? Or can we actually just get to fixing it and dealing with it? Sometimes we get so caught up focusing on the disaster and what happened that we don't actually get to the work of dealing with it. When trust is a factor, there's no fear of retribution. The person who made the mistake flags it immediately. There's no cover-up phase that delays the fix, so we can just get to work. Again, the quicker we can get to work, the quicker we can fix errors, the better. This helps the team to skip the blame-storming session as they move directly from what happened to how do we fix this and what did we learn, within minutes, not days, making success quicker and issues less disruptive. Things will go wrong, I promise you. It's not about avoiding that, it's about dealing with it effectively and efficiently. Clear communication is a huge advantage over defensiveness. Defensiveness is the wall that stops the flow of information. Trust, on the other hand, keeps the pipes clear. When trust is present, vulnerability is normalized. Members don't feel the need to buffer their language or use corporate jargon to hide a lack of progress. You know it is happening with your team when you hear direct, high-utility phrases like, I don't have the answer to that yet, or I missed that deadline because I mismanaged my time. This clarity allows the rest of the team to adjust their workflows instantly, as there's no fear of retribution and punishment, as people just get held accountable to what's happening and we can get to work, we can get to solving the thing, whatever went wrong. We also need to create a healthy balance of willingness to challenge and willingness to be challenged. High trust teams engage in cognitive conflict, which is a disagreement over ideas, while maintaining relational harmony, which is mutual respect with each other. Psychological safety, told you we're going to talk about it a bunch, allows for radical candor. Team members know that challenging an idea is an act of service to the mission, not a sign of disrespect to the person. People aren't walking on eggshells or afraid to take action, and as we know, stillness is death. We have to keep moving. So we have to be able to talk, especially in business or competition. So we need to create a space for movement to occur consistently over and over again, which means we can't be sitting there careful the whole time that we're going to do something wrong. In real time, this looks like meetings not being characterized by polite nodding. Instead, you see junior members questioning even senior leaders and peers, pressure testing each other's logic. Because the trust is deep, the challenge is received as a gift that prevents a costly error later, and everyone welcomes it. Because we know what we're doing here. We're not trying to call each other out to make someone feel bad. We're trying to be as effective and as efficient as we can be with what we're working on, what the mission is. One error high performers run into is often mistaking control for trust, because they have been conditioned to believe that uncertainty is a weakness and that their value lies in having all the answers. Leadership experts define this as the illusion of certainty, where leaders use oversight to manage their own anxiety rather than the team's performance. High performers tend to choose control because of what got them to their position in the first place, themselves. They have a hard time trusting others to be successful because they haven't really done it. This leads to a pattern where, under high pressure, high performers instinctively tighten their grip, micromanaging details and dictating decisions, believing is the only way to ensure results, because this is how they operated previously. And while it worked before, now it's just suffocating the team. And as high performers, they carry the burden of expectation. They often feel it is their duty to be a mountain of certainty for their team, assuming that showing any doubt would erode their credibility. It just isn't true. Honestly, the more vulnerable we are, the more I've done it more myself, the more I see that it actually adds to credibility in times, because they see that we're being genuine and authentic of just who we are. Or simply making a mistake, such as misunderstanding accountability. Many mistake holding people accountable, which is often focused on rules and punishment, for building trust, which is focused on values and empowerment. Now, how does control backfire? Choosing control over trust creates a performance drag that actively undermines high-stakes goals. It erodes initiative. When a leader dictates every move, team members stop sharing ideas and taking initiative, assuming their input doesn't matter. This creates a culture of yes man or silent bystanders, which leads to more failures and mistakes being missed. And these things can lead to increased burnout. Command and control styles drain energy and creativity, leaving both the leader and the team exhausted. Employees in low-trust environments report 74% more stress and 40% more burnout. Another big issue is turnover of top talent. High performers do not leave because the work is hard. They leave when they feel their autonomy is limited. Research indicates that employees lacking autonomy are 43% more likely to seek new jobs within 6 months. If you take all that control away from individuals, all the autonomy, all their ability to make decisions on their own, and try and do it all yourself, you're going to lose the best people you have. You will keep all the people that will agree with everything you have to say. Some of them you'll lose too, but a lot of them you'll keep. But those are actually going to get in the way of the work you're trying to do. You need people to push back, and you need good talent, and it is hard to find good people. And finally, hidden costs. Micromanagement reduces productivities as employees spend more time seeking approvals than doing the work. It signals to the team that they are not trusted, leading to learned helplessness, where people only perform the minimum required and they hold things back. They're more conservative because they're scared of doing something wrong or having it blow up in their face. So I have another story I'm going to go into for you guys. This is a little more business focused. And again, of course, it's confidential, so don't worry about that. A leadership team I was working with had some very strong individual performers, but constant friction. Deadlines were slipping, decisions were stalling, and meetings just felt tense. Everyone was doing their job, yet no one felt aligned. In turn, after some exploring, we found the issue they were facing wasn't competence, it was trust. Leaders didn't trust follow through, so they double checked. They didn't trust reactions, so they withheld feedback. Through personally tailored, structured work on role clarity, communication under stress, and rebuilding reliability, the team was able to shift. Decision making sped up, meetings shortened, and leaders stopped carrying unnecessary emotional weight. The business didn't just stabilize after all this, it scaled, which led to opportunities to expand and further their success in ways they never had before. And this is just a few of so many different examples of how using this work that we do here at Premier Performance can unlock a whole nother level for you, your team, and the company you're working for, or the work that you're doing yourself. There's a belief out there, or saying out there, that if you want to go fast, go alone. But that belief can actually hurt you. High achievers often succeed early by being self-reliant, and that same trait eventually caps performance. I know it feels backwards, but some things get us to certain points and then they stop being helpful for us, and that's what we got to be aware of. Elite performers must learn to transition from solo execution to collective execution to reach the next level. High achievers often find that the very self-reliance that fueled their early ascent becomes the primary obstacle to reaching the next level of elite performance. This transition from heroic individual to collective leader is recognized as the critical hurdle for sustainable success and one of the things we focus on most at Premier Performance. Self-reliance serves as a powerful engine for initial career growth, but it eventually creates a performance ceiling. There is an early advantage, however. High achievers succeed early through self-leadership, mastering discipline, personal goal setting, and an inner-directed vision. This inner drive allows them to outpace their peers through sheer force of will and individual execution. But reliance on solo execution alone creates a performance cap because time, energy, and attention are finite resources. When an individual is solely responsible for everything, they reach a structural limit where they can no longer scale their impact. There is a cost of going it alone. Chronic self-reliance often leads to burnout and isolation. By refusing to delegate, high performers lose out on diverse perspectives and innovative thinking, effectively working in an echo chamber that limits long-term resilience. This is why it is essential to transition from solo to collective execution. To break through the performance ceiling, elite performers must evolve their strategy from individual output to team-based capability. Sustainable high performers do this by embracing interdependence. Leaders must shift from being self-made to being interdependent, recognizing that true strength comes from being connected and allied with others. This involves trusting that the collective effort of a diverse team can achieve more than any single individual. While we do say if you want to go fast, go alone, the second half of that quote is if you want to go far, go together. And that's what this collective execution is all about. We also change focus to systems over stars. Moving to the next level requires building a disciplined system rather than relying on a heroic individual effort. High-functioning teams succeed by creating shared language, trust, and alignment, allowing the group to navigate complexity together, leading to a need for empowerment and delegation. Elite execution focuses on empowering others to take ownership of tasks so we have more people there and the system runs better and they're not leaning on just one or two people. Leaders must learn to lean in for guidance while letting go of control to foster a culture of accountability and innovation and to give people the chances to get good at this stuff. And then we have to embrace collective leadership. Rather than polishing the individual stars, the focus shifts to developing collective leadership capabilities, such as investing in intact teams, peer learning, and cross-functional collaboration. Psychological safety versus comfort. What is the difference? A lot of high performers miss that trust does not mean avoiding discomfort, and safety actually enables challenge, not avoidance. High-performing teams increasingly distinguish between psychological safety and emotional comfort. While often confused, they are fundamentally different. Comfort is the absence of tension, whereas psychological safety is the foundation that allows tension to be productive. The core difference is between comfort and psychological safety. Comfort is a state where individuals stay within established patterns to avoid friction or challenge. In a comfort culture, feedback is often sugar coated and tough conversations are avoided to maintain harmony. Psychological safety is the shared belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, or mistakes. It is not about being nice, it is about creating an environment where candor and risk taking thrive despite being inherently uncomfortable. Trust does not mean avoiding discomfort. For elite performers, trust is the safety net that makes discomfort tolerable. We can have productive discomfort. True growth and breakthrough insights require struggle and vulnerability of not knowing. Safety ensures this discomfort is generative, leading to learning, rather than destructive, which is leading to fear. We can also see comfort get in the way with building trust through artificial harmony versus real trust. Teams that prioritize comfort often settle for artificial harmony, where members withhold hard truths to avoid awkwardness. Real trust is built through courageous candor, addressing friction directly rather than avoiding it. We need to embrace discomfort as it's a signal of growth. Much like physical training, interpersonal growth involves muscle strength. If a team is always comfortable, they are likely in a no development zone, where innovation is stalled. They're not going to get better. We need to push our comfort zones of ourselves and our teams to reach that grow zone. We talked about that in our comfort zone episode. Make sure you go back and check that out if you want to. It's in the catalog. So let's talk about why safety actually enables challenge. Psychological safety is the prerequisite for high intellectual friction. It allows a junior member to challenge a senior leader's strategy without a fear of career repercussions. This dissent is seen as an act of respect and commitment to the team's goals, and we need everyone working on these things because everyone has unique perspectives, skills, talents, abilities, ideas that can help our team be more successful, but we have to open the door to hearing everybody's. By combining high psychological safety with high accountability, it creates the learning zone. In this zone, teams hold each other to high standards and push for excellence through honest, often difficult feedback. Teams with high safety are better equipped to handle external stressors because they can openly discuss blockers and admit mistakes early, preventing small issues from becoming catastrophic failures. Even with all this, trust breakdown can still happen. Trust breakdown in leadership teams, even without open conflict, can occur due to unspoken expectations, inconsistent standards, and avoidance of hard conversations. On top of that, performance tends to drop long before morale does. Leadership experts identify quiet trust erosion, rather than open conflict, as the most common cause of team derailment. Trust often breaks down through a series of micro betrayals that create a wedge between a leader's stated values and their daily actions. Trust can still break down even without conflict. Teams often lose trust in silence because members prioritize politeness or peacekeeping over clarity. When leaders fail to explicitly define norms, team members fill the void with their own assumptions. This leads to confusion where one person's sense of urgency feels like another's micromanagement, causing resentment to ferment beneath the surface. This is why I work with teams and companies to create clarity of responsibilities and expectations to stop confusion and avoid conflict and delays. We need to do this because inconsistent standards can cause chaos. Trust is built on predictability. When a leader holds some members to high standards but ignores poor performance in others, such as appeasing, it signals that the rules are arbitrary. This inconsistency quickly alienates top performers who feel their investment is undervalued. An issue I see a lot is an avoidance of hard conversations. Many leaders avoid tough feedback because they want to be liked or they fear causing tension. However, especially in business or competitiveness, clarity is kindness. Silence about performance issues doesn't protect the team. It confuses them and validates lower standards, eventually making leadership appear duplicitous. And performance drops long before morale does. A team can appear happy and harmonious while its results are secretly collapsing. One reason for this is an energy shift to self-preservation. In low-trust environments, team members stop taking risks or proposing innovative ideas because they don't feel the safety net is there if they fail. Instead of high performance, energy is redirected toward checking boxes and self-protection. The team can also fall into the artificial harmony trap. Morale may look stable because no one is arguing, but this lack of conflict is often a red flag or guarded communication. Decisions are delayed or made in shadow, one-on-one meetings, because the group no longer trusts the collective process to handle friction. One of the early signs is the exit of high achievers. High performers are typically the first to notice the dip in standards. They may remain professional, maintaining surface morale, while quietly planning their exit, leading to a sudden brain drain before the leadership team even realizes there is a crisis. So that's something to keep an eye out. But again, it's going to be tough to see until they actually start walking, because it will look normal, but they will just quietly be planning things. So try and catch these signs early. There are other early warning signs of quiet breakdown you can look for to try and catch it early or sooner. One is silent meetings. Team members stop contributing ideas or challenging the status quo. Everyone just starts accepting what is being said as it is. There's no more pushback. There's no trying to grow things. We're just accepting it and moving on with our life. Another is shadow work. Individuals work in silos or redo others' works because they don't trust the quality of the delegation. So even if we are delegating, we're doing things over again, or we're just doing it all ourselves. We're not letting anyone else see it. You can even see passive-aggressive feedback. Issues are discussed in the grapevine or through gossip rather than directly with the person involved. Triangulation at the end of the day always leads to more problems. It is best to talk directly with whoever we have an issue with, whatever is going on. These all tend to lead to blindsiding, where decisions are announced without warnings or discussions, leaving members feeling excluded, betrayed, or shocked, further increasing the chance of losing people. When you blindside your team as a leader or a high performer, they're not going to stick around. They may be there for some time, but they're not going to stick around long term. They may try and get something for themselves through it. They may try and get to a certain point before they walk away, but they're not going to keep on dealing with that. We need to have trust, and blindsiding people is never going to create trust. So let's talk about why high performers struggle to trust even when they want to, as there are internal barriers that explain why trust feels risky to high achievers. The challenge for high performers is not a lack of desire to trust, but an internal psychological architecture that interprets trust as a threat to their survival and success. High achievers often face micro fears that make collaborative trust feel dangerous, such as a fear of losing control. Many high achievers equate control with quality. They fear that if they are not hyper involved, things will spiral or fail to meet their exact vision. Another one is being stuck with the identity as the reliable one. Their sense of self-worth as the high performer is often tied to being the safe pair of hands who fixes everything. They worry that delegating or trusting others makes them redundant or less valuable to the organization. Some even hold the fear of being let down. Past negative experiences where trust led to mistakes often haunt high performers. This triggers a hyper-independent survival mode where they believe connection is unpredictable and only control is safe, creating this mindset of, I'm just going to do it on my own. And the perfectionist paradox, which is that the relentless pursuit of excellence makes high achievers anticipate failure preemptively. They worry that trusting someone else's good enough work will expose them as failing to maintain their own high standards, so they just want to do it themselves all the time because anyone else doing it isn't good enough. Now, why does trust feel risky for high performers? For those who are used to individual execution, trust feels like a gamble for several reasons. One is reputational stakes. High performers often feel they're only as good as their last win. Trusting a team member feels like putting their own hard-earned reputation in someone else's hands. And I will say there is so much more to whatever you guys are doing than just the last thing you did. We have to hold on to that and look at the whole, even if other people aren't willing to look at it sometimes. Second is short-term inefficiency. In the short term, teaching and trusting others takes longer than doing it oneself. It is quicker to just do it. It is, but it won't be sustainable. We have to go through the long-term aspect of the teaching and training, because while it does take longer, it will create more time and more efficiency later. To a high achiever addicted to quick wins, this delay feels like a setback. It feels like something's going wrong. Third is the vulnerability gap. High stakes roles often demand a persona of having all the answers. Admitting that they need others' help can feel like a weakness that invites judgment, and some high performers will avoid that at all costs, however they can. With all this said, despite the risks, trust is the only path to elite level performance. It creates exponential impact where individual execution is linear and limited by personal time, while collective execution is exponential. It reinforces resilience against burnout. High performers who refuse to trust eventually hit a performance cap, characterized by exhaustion and chronic stress. Trusting teams report 40% less burnout and 74% less stress, which is huge. It motivates innovation and ambiguity. No one person has all the answers. Trust provides the psychological safety needed for teams to take risks and innovate, which is essential for organizational survival. And it creates a structural advantage. Leaders who build trust infrastructure reduce internal friction and accelerate decision making, turning trust into a tangible competitive advantage. And one of the biggest aspects of trust is being able to trust during failure, not just success. This is where it's most important, as you'll see the team trust is truly tested after missed deadlines, lost competitions, or even bad decisions. There are strategies elite teams use to respond differently to failure than average teams that you can take advantage of too. The hallmark of an elite team is not the absence of failure, but the quality of its response to it. While average teams see failure as a threat to their survival, elite teams use it as a catalyst for deeper trust and operational refinement. Trust is relatively easy to maintain during success. It is truly tested only when things go wrong. The moment of truth is in every reaction to a mistake, as it either opens or closes the door of trust. If a leader or a teammate reacts with blame, the team learns to hide future errors, creating a silent killer of distrust. Trust is tested by whether it is safe to admit a missed deadline early or flag a bad decision before it becomes a catastrophe. Teams that can tell the truth without pretending operate with a higher emotional efficiency, which is why we need to create safety and trust so we can be open and vulnerable to succeed. Let's discuss some elite recovery strategies that high performers use. First thing you can do is lower the social cost of speaking up. Leaders model vulnerability by sharing their own failures first, making it a badge of honor rather than a shame to say, I don't know or I made a mistake. I try and do this on here on the Premier Mindset with you guys to just share some mistakes or issues or struggles I've had to just kind of normalize it. I do it a lot in sessions with the people I work with, the teams I work with, the companies I work with, because understanding that these things just happen and it's okay helps open people up to giving it a shot. And we're able to operate at those edges when things can go wrong. That's when we're going to be the most successful. You can also formalize dissent. Elite teams use structured mechanisms like premortems, as we talked about, or design contrarians to explore how things could fail before they do. We need to point things out so we can take advantage of it and fix it before it becomes a problem. Being proactive can be very helpful, whatever we're doing. We can focus on institutionalizing learning. Instead of just tracking results, these teams measure learning cycles, how quickly they identify, admit, and correct course when assumptions prove wrong. And we can work to reset the baseline. When a deadline is missed, elite leaders don't just let it slide, as this erodes standards. They hold a straight talk conversation to understand the root cause and adjust the process immediately. A lot of people miss this, where they'll either let it slide or they just try and punish somebody through some hard conversation about how they suck. That's not helping either way. We need to have a straight, honest conversation about what happened and how it went wrong, not as a way to give excuses or to get out of it, but to adjust the process so we can be more successful and not fall into issues or traps. In summary, high performance isn't just about individual effort. It's about how well a team functions under pressure. Trust is what allows people to communicate clearly, take ownership, recover from mistakes, and stay aligned with the mission when stress rises. Without trust, teams rely on control, overwork, and assumption, which quietly drains energy and limits growth. When trust is built intentionally, teams move faster, leaders carry less, and performance becomes sustainable instead of fragile. So a couple questions for you guys to think about, to reflect on. I want you guys to write these down for yourself and answer them for yourself. And I also want you to send me the answers so I can hold you accountable. And based on your answers, I can give you a tool or two to get started on these things and see where it leads you. So first question, where does trust feel strongest on your team? And where does it quietly break down under pressure? Reflect where you're at. Could be a company, could be a business, could be a job you're working on, whatever it is. Could be a team. See how that is going, and honestly tell yourself those things. Next question. What behaviors weaken trust the most? Avoiding hard conversations, unclear expectations, micromanagement, or unspoken resentment? Which one impacts you the most? We're all going to be different. Some people hate micromanaging. Some people really hate unclear expectations. So take a look at and reflect on what behavior weakens trust the most for you. And then third and final question, when was the last time you actively repaired trust instead of pushing through tension? What changes when trust becomes a priority and not an afterthought? So think about times you've actually worked on building that trust and not just pushing through it and just trying to get through the situation, but you're actively working to rebuild things. So answer those questions, do them for yourself, and also send them my way. You can send them to me in a lot of different ways. I'll give you guys that information in just a second. Resilient minds, premier results. That's what we're building here at the Premier Mindset. We're building up your mindset so you have everything you need, whether it's knowledge, strategies, tools to be successful in what you're doing. And then we come in and work as our company, Premier Performance, to help you guys be successful through a tailored approach, running you through a system that's going to help build you up for whatever goal you may have. With all of these things, recognition is the first step. If we don't know something's happening, we can't do anything about it. So pay attention to what you're doing and constantly reflect. The more you do it, the better. We have to see what we're doing and why we're doing it, because that's going to help us change and improve as an individual. If you found any benefit in this, leave a review for us. It's very helpful for us to get reviews as we can spread this to more and more people, and that's our ultimate goal, is just to spread awareness and get this to as many people as possible and just make life easier. And if there's someone in your life that you think could benefit from hearing these things, then send it their way. Maybe this episode's exactly what they're looking for and they've just been waiting to hear some of these things. Maybe they don't care at all and they don't even want to listen to it. Totally fine. But there's really no risk of just sending them the episode. If they don't check it out, no big deal. But if they do, it could help. And if something can help, I feel like it's worth doing. I make it a point to give you guys actionable tools to find success in your life. So let me know if it's helping. I love staying connected with you all, and I just want to know how it's all going. I want to hear about the failures, the successes, the heartbreaks, and everything in between. Don't be afraid to keep me in the loop. Don't feel shame. Don't feel guilty. Don't be afraid of opening up and just being honest. A lot of what we're talking about today's episode with trust is about vulnerability. So even if you feel like you can't be vulnerable anywhere else, be vulnerable with me and let's just see how it goes. There are a lot of different ways to reach out to me. So feel free to reach out however you like, whatever works best for you. And if you don't hear from me, keep reaching out to me. If I'm not responding, it's not because I don't want to. It's usually just because I didn't see it or I just haven't gotten to it yet. So feel free. I give you full permission to annoy me as much as you want to, because I will see it eventually if you just keep messaging me. So make sure you do, especially if you don't get an answer. And you can always try it a different way as well if one way isn't working. So you can email me at tmahler@premierperformancereno.com. My last name spelled Mahler. You could text or call me at 775-561-0056. We have the Instagram and the TikTok with the same name for both of those, which is Premier_Performance_Reno. And then we have the Facebook page and the LinkedIn page with the same name for both of those as well, which is Premier Performance LLC. And then we have the Twitter or X account at Premier Reno LLC. And finally, our website, which is www.premierperformancereno.com. So get involved in all those things. We're building communities on all those social media pages, and we're going to continue to do so. We drop content literally every day, and we have new podcast episodes coming out every week. So keep on checking in and get engaged in these communities so you catch everything that comes out, and you can start interacting with people in these communities, because our ultimate goal is to build up a bunch of high achievers together so that we can all work with each other and network off of each other as well. Next week, we're going to keep going with all this, and we're going to dive into the art of difficult conversations. What that looks like, how to do it, how to help yourself through it, how to be successful with it, things to look out for, and everything in between. This is helpful with teams, this is helpful in relationships, this is helpful with business, this is helpful with success all around, because difficult conversations are a part of it all. So we'll get deeper into all that and see what we can do as we keep on building with all these things. We're just going to keep on adding things in and keep on building on the foundation that we have built. If this is your first time checking us out, thanks for coming in, and make sure to go into the catalog and check out any other episode that might interest you. There's a lot of great stuff out there, and we're going to continue to add to it. If there's anything you guys need, make sure to reach out and let me know. I want to just be a resource to help however I can. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you guys find some success and a great time as you go through it. And if challenges show up, lock in, do what you got to do, and get through it. They won't last forever. I hope things work out well, and I hope it all goes smoothly. And I will see you guys next week. We'll talk soon.